Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Aquarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of August 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot for you today. Sorry if you can hear a hum in the background. It is exceedingly hot where I am and my equipment will not operate without the air conditioning unit on. So we'll just deal with it. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is link number 1 in the description box. Link number 2 is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. If that sounds like it would be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. I'm quite impatient to get on with this reading for you, Aquarius, so let's just flip this around a second and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Aquarius, please? Okay, so in the recent past we have the Temperance card. About current energy for Aquarius, please. I'm not taking all of those cards, but let's have a look. We've got the Ace of Cups, the Fool, the Four of Wands, 5 of Swords, it's 4 of Swords, Queen of Cups and the 2 of Pentacles. That's far too muddled a message. They're going back in. I'm going to shuffle them back in and try that one again. Current energy for Aquarius, please. Okay, there we go. We've got the 6 of Cups. And what's coming towards Aquarius, please, in August? Okay, we have the 9 of Swords. Is that the 9 of Swords? It's the 10 of Swords, the 4 of Cups, and the Devil. Right. Don't panic too much, but I do think that you're going to need to change direction somewhat. And I think all of the energies are supporting that. I just think that for most Aquarians, they're going to end up going in a direction that they had not really wanted to. And maybe for some of you, that is backwards. I say that because we've got the 6 of Cups here, and we are currently in a Mercury retrograde. We're also in a Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde. Anything else? Oh, I don't know. Lots of retrograde energy anyway. And we do have Pluto, which is currently in your sign, Aquarius, heading back into Capricorn. That is actually happening on the 4th of September, so not strictly within August, but I mean, you know, there's a 2-week kind of either way with these things, recent past and coming towards and whatnot. Let's move for the show. I've got tab ash on my fucking table. Shocking. Anyway, so it could well be that actually this revisitation of Pluto back into Capricorn, which in some ways is taking the energy away from, you, whether, you're an Aquarius ascendant and this is coming out of your first house and back into your 12th, which would be very challenging in and of itself, or whether you're an Aquarius sun and your sun is sitting in a different house altogether. Like, I think you're going to notice the vibe shift quite strongly, because there is the sense of some sort of revisitation of something that has gone before. It feels like I don't want to say boss battle, because it doesn't really feel like that, but at the same time, this Devil card here that does represent Saturn, which is, at least in traditional astrology, your ruling planet. It feels like there's a change of direction coming up, and one that at this point is very difficult to kind of see. And a lot of that might well be because of the way that you're processing the information that's coming into you at this point. I'm going to pull some clarifiers so we can put some meat on the bones of this and see what's going on. So we've got the Temperance card. Why is that here? Right, we've got the 2 of Cups and we've got the Magician reversed. Tell me about 6 of Cups. Fuck's sake. Right, we have... Oh, let's have a look. How interesting. So, who else was it? Was it Aries? Aries also had these 2 cards, but they were in the upright for Aries. Actually, I'm going to say those 3 cards, because it was Chariot, then the Death card, then the Ace of Wands. But like I said, these two were in the upright. How weird, they had the Page of Wands as well as the Ace of Wands. Anyway, that's the whole thing. We'll come to that in a second. Tell me about the Ten of Swords, Four of Cups and the Devil, please. Oh, sideways cards. Right, we have the Eight of Swords, exactly as we would expect. Sort of felt that one coming. We've got the Page of Wands and we've got the Fool, and all of these are sideways. And I think that this is important because Page of Swords at the bottom of the deck here, there's something here that needs to change, maybe around mindset, maybe around the way that you understand information that is already at your disposal. Let's put it that way, because we've got two swords cards sitting here at the bottom of each of the decks, right? These are the shadow cards, and both of them are of the element of air, right? They're your element here. This one's talking about a kind of mental expansion, but in some ways this is talking about a mental constriction. It's a restriction. It's trying to weigh up a situation that feels a little bit damned if you do, damned if you don't, really. But a little bit more damned if you do, I guess, is the way that I would put it. We'll get into this. We got the Temperance card here. Temperance card is about temperance, it's about moderation, it's about balance, it's about the achieving of equilibrium through healing of some sort, right? And it's a card that represents great balance. It's actually a fire element card. It represents Sagittarius, but there's always water depicted on it somewhere, because it's about the alchemical process of turning one thing into another. Usually it's painful experiences into some sort of healing experience, but it's always talking about keeping things grounded, keeping things balanced. And here it feels to me a little bit like you feel like you're out of the woods, and maybe this is I feel like this is heavily foreshadowing the re-entry of Pluto into the 12th house, for those of you at least who are Aquarius ascendants. Because there's a sense of something that feels like it has been conquered, and we get that, you know, from the Temperance card quite strongly here, only to be revisited, and a lot of things needing to be reassessed in light of what is playing out. Now we got the Two of Cups there, which is about partnerships, and this doesn't have to be romantic, intimate, sexual relationships, although it absolutely can be. It can be business partnerships, it can be sibling relationships, it can be friendships, work colleagues, whatever. It's the way that you come together with another person and experience shared goals, a shared vision for the future, right? There's an alignment here in the Two of Cups that is, when you drill down into it, I mean, really what it's talking about is intimacy, and those different gradations of intimacy that we experience in different sectors of life with another person. You would be more intimate with your business partner about things of a business nature than you would be with Bob down the street, hopefully, if you've got a good working partnership. But this Magician card is quite interesting, because when it's in the upright, it talks about manifestation. It talks about the creative force that is running through us all, right? And so to an extent it can also speak of initiation, although it tends to be a step on. It is a step on from the Fool, which is that pure creative spark. This is about the combination of will with the elements to bring together something that will, you know, create something in the world in front of you. But as a manipulator of reality, which indeed the Magician is, when it shows up in the reverse, and it shows up with a card that speaks so deeply of intimate situations, the Magician card feels then like a manipulation within relationships. Now this could be historic for you, or it could be something that you've been dealing with a little more recently. But what it's saying here is that you feel that the way that you show up now indicates a level of healing from previous manipulation that isn't necessarily reflected in reality. Why do I say that? Well, because Well, because of everything that I've laid out, and the fact that we do seem to be going backwards once we hit your current energy and into what's happening for the rest of August. The Magician is an extremely powerful card, and he can be as powerfully negative as he can be powerfully positive. Which is not to say that everything is awful and fucked and whatnot, but it is saying that there's a level of understanding and awareness and whatnot that needs to be engaged with, that you have not hit yet. And in order to hit that, you have to sort of, well, it certainly seems like what's laying out in front of you is an opportunity to go back and see how little of the experience has either been healed from, or how little information you really have at your disposal about something that was happening in the past. And then more importantly, what that tells you about yourself, because in your current energy you've got the Six of Cups here, right? And this is a return to the past. It's a card that comes out very commonly during retrograde periods. Mercury retrogrades 3 to 4 times a year. It's nothing to be afraid of, but it is an opportunity to dot the I's and cross the T's on all sorts of different situations. It's not necessarily a good time for initiating stuff, and it tends to be a time where we go back over things that have already been, whether it's forced upon us, somebody reappearing that we haven't seen in a long time, or whether, you know, we just find ourselves going back over things. Now, the fact that the Chariot card and the Death card here are in the reverse, and the Ace of Wands is showing up sideways, it feels like the rug is being pulled on what you thought you knew about yourself and what you thought about the level of transformation that you have been through up until this point. The Death card can sometimes indicate endings and whatnot, so it could be an undoing of an ending that you thought had already occurred, and then there being, you know, all sorts of things that come up to the surface that you hadn't anticipated, and a true sense of confusion around what it is that you were supposed to do about it. You know, whether it is Ace of Wands here, like how you're supposed to change in light of what you are now seeing, understanding, feeling, or how it is that your actions got you to where you are in the first place, right? It's almost like I did what I thought was the right thing, but now I'm kind of second guessing myself, and did I really do the right thing? By me, by somebody else, whoever, it doesn't really matter. Because the Chariot is no movement forwards whatsoever. When it shows up in the reverse like this, it's the brakes are on hard, and the Chariot is running the risk of flipping over. I mean, certainly it speaks to an imbalance somewhere. And it's an imbalance in terms of your plans, your goals, your motivations. But because the Chariot card deals with the sense of self, it is also awareness of self. It's like realizing where we've come up against an internal wall. One of the things that I like in a slightly abstract, my Aquarius South Node sort of way, is when I'm doing personal readings with people and I say something and I see their brain seize up. I see their mouth seize up. When they're presented with something that they did not see before, and they sort of go, and they don't know what to say, and they don't know what to think about it, because it's just shown them where there was a mental cul-de-sac. And it said, did you know there's a way out this way? And they're like, I had no idea that that's even how I felt, or that's even how I thought, or that's even how this particular experience was playing out in my present. And I get that same feeling for the Chariot card in reverse here for you, Aquarius. It's like that awareness of there being a bit of a brick wall. And you're like, I didn't think this was here. I didn't even know this was here a minute ago. I don't know what to think about it. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't understand what this tells me about myself. And then this Death card here, like whether it's about an ending that's already happened, or whether it's the extent to which you think you have changed, only to be presented with evidence of the fact that actually, you know, whatever it is that you've been dealing with has simply changed form. It's gone darker, it's gone deeper, and it's circumvented you in some sort of way. Now, I realise I'm talking in fairly abstract terms, so you've got to take this as it applies to you. because you'll know better than I how this applies to your particular circumstances. But this level of confusion that you're feeling, I want to reassure you, is exactly where you are supposed to be. The Two of Swords is that kind of deadlock of mental activity where you're like, like in the Waitsmith, this card actually has a woman on it, and the two swords she's holding them like this in front of her chest, so blocking the emotional stuff, as you would expect, but she's also blindfolded, and on top of everything else, she has her back to the water, she has her back to the moon. Now, there are no characters depicted here, and I think that this is important because it doesn't feel like it's specifically aimed at you or specifically aimed at somebody who was involved in an experience that you had at some point, right? It feels much more encapsulating than that. This is not something that you could easily, cast blame onto somebody else for. Oh, they deceived me, or or whatever. It's more like a bit of a monumental self-deception. And we're all guilty of these all of the time. And it's only when we arrive at some sort of situation that shows us where the limits of our thinking are that we are able to recognise that there was a limit there in the first place. Because often we don't. We don't know what we don't know. And that's a really difficult thing to get around sometimes. But there's something here about the past, whether it's a past version of you, a past way of emotionally dealing with things, something about your childhood. It feels like there's something coming up here, and you're just like, whoa, what the fuck? Now, in those kind of situations, my advice is always Mars and Libra, right? Sit on it. Don't do anything with it. Don't feel compelled to do anything with it just yet. See how it plays out. And I have to say, more times than not, that actually serves me really, really well. It stops me being very reactive. It stops me getting on the ego train, which is really important for me not to do anyway. And being absolutely certain that I've been right and so everybody else in the world must be wrong. It gives me time to really muse on that, think on that. However, with the cards that are coming up here for August, Ten of Swords, Four of Cups, the Devil, I'm not sure that you have the liberty of just waiting out this situation to see what happens, because there's an immediacy to the Ten of Swords that I don't think it's possible for you to get away from, if I'm honest. Like, it's your 10, right? It's air element 10. And it is necessarily uncomfortable. Now, because swords rule the intellect and rationality and reason and the workings of the mind and communication and things like this, we could see this representing an end to a particular way of thinking about things. That, ideally, would probably be the most positive interpretation that we could come up with for the Ten of Swords. Tens represent ends, swords being what they are. It's an end to the way in which we've been obfuscating our connection to correct information, right? Brain's been doing mental gymnastics, as they often do, and but now we've seen the light, right? Because what follows on from the Ten of Swords, we've got the Ace of Swords, right? It's a whole brand new way of seeing everything, of processing information. It's your whole mental outlook. It's a good card in some ways when you look at it like that. But the Ten of Swords often is associated with a sense of betrayal. It's associated with a sense of humiliation. It's associated with really difficult endings that are hard to navigate. When it shows up here with the Four of Cups, which is a card for me that actually I associate most often with things like abandonment issues and things, we got a sense of peak mental awareness of ways in which we have felt isolated, alone, unsupported, abandoned, if you will, and a realization of the extent to which we have created mental sidesteps for these things. I mean, beyond the no illusion, the whole of August is about self-awareness, right, and increasing self-awareness. But in order to introduce yourself to a new paradigm, you are always going to leave one behind, and that is always going to be difficult, because that, you know, this is how your reality functions, is by your awareness of the parameters of your existence right now. When it turns out that those parameters were wrongly placed, or you were working with information that was not quite correct, that is confrontational. It makes things very, very difficult for us. And if there's some sort of association here with potentially childhood trauma, it's not for all of you, but certainly for some of you, right? And a realization that, say, for example, the detachment for which you are famed is actually an avoidance, right? I keep everybody at arm's length so that nobody gets the opportunity to manipulate me again. Nobody gets the opportunity to be deceptive within relationships. If I don't trust you, I can't be crushed when it turns out that I was right not to trust you, because I kept you at arm's length, you know? It's just one aspect of how this could play out, but like, I'm bringing it up because it's important. Because the devil, as well as representing Saturn, is also talking about the ways in which we keep ourselves trapped. And it is how we keep ourselves trapped, because the devil has no fucking energy of his own. He has no power of his own. He can only use what we give him. And I think what we've got here is a cascading realization of self, but also restrictions of self, like the extent to which we have tried to protect ourselves by isolating ourselves. Now, these three cards that are the clarifying down here are really interesting. We've got the three of, no we haven't, we've got the Eight of Swords. Let me turn it around so you can see it like that. Eight of Swords, the Page of Wands, and the Fool. There is a release happening here. There's a liberation happening here. There's a certain amount of trusting through the process that is being asked of you, and that likely is probably very, very difficult. Nevertheless, it is necessary, because the Page of Wands is the beginning of a new direction, right? Taking a new direction. It's a new journey of sorts. It's exploratory. It's expansive, in the same way that the Page of Swords is, but where this is expanding your mind, this is expanding your experiences. And then we have the Fool, which is just the most wonderful card of freedom and liberation. What are we freeing ourselves from? What are we liberating ourselves from? The Eight of Swords. And this is so very important, because this Jupiter in Gemini, which is exactly where Jupiter is in the sky right now, right? The energy of Jupiter is expanding the contraction that we feel in the Eight of Swords. Now, you know, I've talked about this card as ad nauseum. I actually love this card, personally speaking, and I don't know if it's because I'm a life path 8 or whatever, right? And it's an 8, but all of the 8s within the tarot speak about empowerment of some description or another, right? But they give us an idea of what that empowerment may look like, right? What is the nature of it? The Eight of Swords is one of the more difficult cards in that respect, because what it's saying is the swords that represent your reason, your intelligence, your communication, your understanding of a situation, are the very thing that is making you feel trapped and stuck, just as you do with the devil. It's saying that, you know, it is the way that you are thinking about a situation that is causing the problem. It is not that you are stuck. It is not that you are trapped. There are all sorts of different options there. And one of the ways that I interpret the Two of Swords is being, I call it willful ignorance sometimes, or willful blindness, which sounds a little harsh, and I should probably think harder about a better way to explain that. But because there's been a subconscious decision made to ignore emotion, to ignore intuition, and deal only with facts, right? The nature of the swords themselves, right? We're going to end up eventually at a point where we're holding these two swords, we're trying to make a decision between them, and the two swords are effectively identical. There is nothing to choose between them. When you push harder into that interpretation, the reason it becomes willful blindness or a willful ignorance, from my perspective, is because the answers are there. They're contained in the water, which represents emotion in the tarot. They're contained within the moon, which is your intuition. But for whatever reason, the character in that card refuses to turn around and look, which means to me, on a subconscious level, you are already aware of what it is that you need to do to get out of this situation, but it is a cost that at this point you are not willing to pay. Now, like I said, the Eight of Swords represents your way out of this situation. Unfortunately, it is not in the upright, it's sideways, as is the Page of Wands, as is the Fool. And in this instance, these cards are either shifting in energy from upright to reversed or vice versa, or they are simply not committing to the energy either way. They're like, there's some more shit's got to go down before I decide whether I'm upright or reversed. And that can make things really, really difficult. Not least because I feel like this Ten of Swords, Four of Cups, Devil cascade, which characterizes the rest of August for you, is a very necessary part of the journey to give you what you need to identify where this Eight of Swords is operating in your mind. At the moment, it's obscured from view. You can't see it. In fact, for the most part, the Eight of Swords is obscured from view. But the reason why I love this card the most is because when that shows up in a reading that I am doing for myself, it tells me that I need to take a step back and reassess. I need to have a look again. I need to weigh things up. And I have to confront the things that I am worried about, the things that I'm concerned about, because those are the driver for me trying to maintain the status quo rather than looking to change it in whatever way that it happens, right? So it's a really good card for flicking you on the eyeball and saying, like, do it better, you know? I think once these experiences have happened here for you, we've got much more of this situation going on, right? The Page of Wands is also a card of freedom and liberation, but the Fool is the ultimate card of freedom and liberation. And what are you freeing yourself from? It's something to do with the way that you are thinking about the past and therefore thinking about the future. But the way in which there's been something emotionally reactive before that you're now choosing to push right away. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? The bathwater is the emotions. Don't like that. That's not very nice. But the baby is the core experience that was designed to teach you something. Now it's coming back around again, somehow, some way. And it's saying this time, look for the baby, right? Pull the plug out for sure, but lift the baby out first. Because the change of direction that this is going to bring about is something that feels not just emotionally fulfilling, but it's amazing how much tension it takes away when you eliminate something that you have been subconsciously concerned about and consciously oblivious to. Right? You might say, well, if I'm not conscious of it, how could it be causing tension? It's because energy is being expended by your subconscious and it is ruling every decision that you make. And I think by the end of August, you're going to make a series of different decisions about what you want moving forwards. It's not comfortable. It feels quite personally challenging. But at the same time, I think Aquarius is one of those signs that would much rather deal in truth than in fiction. And what's being exposed here is a kind of a level of personal fiction that you had not realized was operating. Now, I've seen a lot of do you know what, we'll save that for the extended when we sit and have a chat. But like, what happens in the next few weeks has an effect that carries forwards far further than just September. You should be aware of that. So, I'm going to leave it there. If you would like to come join me for the extended, I'd be delighted to see you. You can do that on Circle or you can do that on Vimeo. Either or, it's entirely up to you. I'd be delighted to see you there. If neither of those are your thing, I was just like, dig in with yourself, Aquarius, over the next few weeks, because I genuinely think that you'll be very glad that you did. And whatever it is that is restrictive, whatever it is that feels painful, looking at it from your peripheral vision, or just not looking at it at all, is making it something bigger than it actually is. This is something that needs looking at head on, and then using your logic and your rationality on yourself to let it go and release yourself. It's going to be challenging, but ultimately it is worth it. So, like I said, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.